Hi everybody, I'm Bree the Plant Lady, and today I'm gonna get busy clearing out these garden areas around my back porch. Now the reason I'm doing this, we've already had a light frost. We have temperatures in the upper 20s coming the next few days, and I figured, well, I have a dry, somewhat sunny day, I might as well get outside and preemptively get the rest of the summer produce harvested, including digging the sweet potatoes that are currently covering that cattle fence arch. Well, I can't wait to get down and dirty and ultimately get this replanted for the cool season. So stay tuned for my progress. Well, that certainly didn't take long. I love just doing bed by bed. Makes it a task that feels really big, suddenly not so big. So I'm leaving the dahlias, just cut them down. I'm gonna leave them in the ground this winter and see if they come through. I suspect they will. Obviously, this echinacea is still in full bloom. The nasturtiums that I seeded in August haven't been nipped by the frost yet. They will, probably in a few days, but I'm gonna leave them for now. And now I'm going to start digging the sweet potatoes out on both sides of this arch. And fingers crossed, I'm gonna have some good sized tubers that we'll be able to eat for Thanksgiving. Well, I have to admit, it's pretty anticlimactic that this is all I got from those Treasure Island sweet potatoes that were planted here. This is my third year growing them, and yeah, the yields are definitely less than like a conventional agricultural sweet potato, but I really thought that I'd done what I really needed to do this year to ensure that I would get like good tuber production. So though I think I will continue to grow them in the future because their foliage is beautiful, I'm definitely gonna also include Covington. That's like a great North Carolina sweet potato variety that not only does it really work effectively as a ground cover and suppresses weeds and grows all summer, but you'll actually get a notable harvest that will be able to feed you for, you know, a long time over the course of the winter. So, I mean, I'm glad I got something, but yeah, in the perspective of whether the Treasure Island sweet potatoes should really be grown for their productivity, I would say not so much. The difference between the Treasure Island sweet potatoes and the conventional ornamental varieties is they actually do, when you get the tubers are delicious and they are fully edible, whereas the traditional ornamental varieties like Marguerite and Blackie and Ace of Spades, they will grow a tuber, but it's really starchy and it doesn't have any flavor. So these do still, you know, cross over into the edible ornamental realm. It's just that the productivity is so low. So, well, I'm disappointed, but always a good learning experience. Now I am gonna get busy seeding this bed and getting some colorful violas planted so that it'll have good winter interest. So let me show you how I'm gonna get this bed replanted for the winter season. The first step in getting this bed replanted is to get some sugar snap peas sown into the ground. And this is a large packet I picked up at a local garden center from Botanical Interests. And one of the key things for stimulating beans and peas to germinate more readily is to soak them in hot tap water overnight. And so I did that here, and I wanted to show you the difference between what the soaked beans look like versus what they look like in the packet. So you can see the soaked beans here are really like plump and, you know, they don't look dehydrated. They're not sort of wrinkly, whereas these seeds are really quite dehydrated. So by soaking them just in hot tap water, you don't keep the water hot, you just, people always ask, but no, you don't have to keep the water hot, you just start it hot and then it sits at room temperature. I drained these earlier this morning and now these are ready to get sown. I'm gonna plant these on both sides of this arch. I've just dug a small trench as I was digging the sweet potatoes up. And this is a lot. I probably don't need all of these here. I've got several other arches in the garden that I can also sow these at. Now you might be wondering about timing. And yeah, if I had wanted these to be harvested right now, they would have needed to have been sown in August. Of course, the arch was completely covered with sweet potatoes in August. I didn't have room to put these in. So planting these now, they'll grow, and they should, in theory, unless we have really crazy warm weather, should stay relatively small, and these will be available for a spring harvest. And I like to plant mine relatively close, usually about an inch apart. I don't really think it matters how close they are because you're going to be growing these up. They're not competing for resources, you know, at ground level. So planting them close together, I don't really think is an issue. Okay, now literally just cover them back up. Some garden tasks are just too easy. All right, now it's time for the fun part, getting the bed replanted. Now there's not a lot of room in here, and I've decided that I'm gonna predominantly fill it with vegetative things. I've got some sprouting broccoli that looks kind of sad in this tray, but once it goes in the ground, I know it'll do well. And then I've got yellow, purple, and bicolor violas. And remember, I always do violas, not pansies, because they last through the entire winter and they're far more reliable. The large flower pansies don't tend to persist through our temperature fluctuations here in central North Carolina, zone 7. And along the edge, this side already is planted in garlic to help prevent animals, both above ground, deer, rabbits, groundhogs, but also problematic in-ground creatures like voles. Voles are a huge problem for me. And I've got some more garlic that actually was just yanked out of the ground in an area and a border adjacent that I missed harvesting last year. I'm gonna go ahead and get these separated and planted along that other edge. But before I get the vegetative things put in, I have a couple of bulbs that I'd like to add to this bed just to give it some extra oomph for spring interest. So what bulbs do I plan to put in this bed? Well, I'm gonna keep it really simple. I have got some large alliums and some bright yellow daffodils, both of which I picked up at Aldi. If you haven't been to Aldi, they actually, if you hit it right, they have really good bulbs at really good prices. Now I'm gonna split these up between this bed behind me and a larger bed that's on the other side of my back deck. That way both of these beds kind of speak to one another and, you know, look similar enough that it's all kind of a continuous space. So I'm gonna start digging some holes, getting this planted once and for all for the cool season. Now that this bed is basically completely planted, I'm only gonna do one overseeding, and that is with this Shirley double poppy. Actually found this at Lowe's the other day, and I was quite happy to see they finally had seeds in stock. And essentially, you know, the thing with poppies, they need light to germinate, so they're the last thing you sow. Even on the seed instructions, it says, do not cover, depth, do not cover. And that's maybe one of the first times that the seed packet actually gave accurate information. I shouldn't say that. It's just that a lot of times the information on seed packets isn't really accurate for zone 7 and warmer climates. But in this case, this is giving you at least the right depth. And essentially, it's very anticlimactic. You know, the seeds are really tiny. There's hardly any in here. My seed packs that I sell at in-person events are so robust. But this is enough to just kind of fill in the gaps in between all that broccoli and sort of, you know, along the edges. And the Shirley poppies only grow about 2 foot tall, so they aren't like the tall poppies that I traditionally grow. And, you know, I'm doing this very strategically I'm in mid-November right now. Ideally, you'd be doing this starting right after Thanksgiving. Usually Black Friday is my target date. I'm kind of amending that now because we haven't really had a lot of consistently cold weather. And the critical component for successfully growing these spring flowering plants is to get them sown in cool soil. Now I'm anticipating that my soil temperatures are going to go down significantly. As the forecast, we basically have lows in the upper 20s basically from here on out. So that's, I think, going to be cool enough. Ideally, you'll start doing this, I think, early December. Really, the month of December is ideal for direct seeding these things that will flower in April and May. Remember, they need cool soil in order to grow. And you want to do this now that all these plants are totally hardy for normal winter temperatures in zones 6 through 9. You don't have to cover them. You don't have to go to any great lengths to be able to overwinter them at all. But you won't be successful sowing poppies if you do this in the spring because we just get too hot too early and they won't really come to fruition. All right, well, get ready for the least exciting thing you'll ever see on YouTube. Scattering these poppy seeds. As I was doing that, I decided I have to do one more thing. I'm gonna scatter these Larkspur, or as they call them, giant imperial mixed. This is, again, I found just this week at Lowe's in the Fairy Morse seed section. And I'm gonna do this towards the back, just where those dahlias were, just to give it some oomph and kind of a beautiful backdrop. And again, these can go right on the surface. Larkspur are far more versatile. You can cover Larkspur up. I don't do any mulching at this time of year. I basically allow the beds to be open because I'm overseeding. I want all that seed to germinate really well, and I just don't want to go through the effort of putting mulch out. I might mulch sometime later in December or early January, really just along bed edges to keep everything looking tidy. So again, just gonna deposit this seed more towards the back section of this garden, and I'm gonna call it done. Now, once we get really cold, I will eventually cut this back, but for right now, it's just too pretty. And ultimately, I'll just plant, I might actually do like a clump of barley or a clump of wheat right here on both sides, but I'm gonna wait until after the sage actually gets knocked all the way down. But you can see here, you know, the garlic and onion border along the front, that's actually a parsley left over from last year. And then the violas and the sprouting broccolis. Of course, some nasturtiums left from the summer. And the snap peas planted at the base on both sides of this arch. Well, I hope this seasonal transformation video will inspire you to get outside and get busy planting. And I hope that you will give me a like. Be sure to subscribe and share with your friends for more practical gardening advice right here from my Zone 7 Central North Carolina garden. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Happy planting.